Welcome to Rewatch and Rank. On this channel, we rewatch older TV shows, provide a summary and opinion on the episode before ranking each episode against each other. And today's episode is Grey's Anatomy Season 2, Episode 20, Band-Aid Covers the Bullet Hole. The episode in a nutshell is just a brief reminder of what happens in the episode. So in this episode, as always, we'll start with the patients. So first patient is a woman who comes in with a fork in her neck, which needs to be removed, and it is revealed that the reason she had a fork in her neck was because she was getting frisky with her husband in a public location when, due to an aneurysm, which is a pre-existing diagnosis she has, she ended up clenching, which caused him to experience pain and instinctively shove the fork in her neck. Derek then says that he's willing to offer an opinion on the aneurysm to see if it can be operated on, but she's very resistant to this idea because since she got her aneurysm, she has been able to experience more fun in life than she had previously. Basically, she was settled in life, 15 years of invisibility, and then she got her diagnosis, and now her and her husband are getting frisky in public and traveling and having a great time. And she doesn't want that to end because her diagnosis ended. However, in the end, Derek is able to convince her to get the surgery by basically telling her to promise herself that she won't settle, and if she chooses not to settle again, he could give her decades because he is willing to operate on the aneurysm so that it will no longer be a danger to her. And ultimately, she decides to, and then she does survive the surgery at the end of the episode. Second patient was a hockey player who ended up with a finger fracture. However, because there was a very important game with scouts that day, he didn't want to wait for his bone to be set surgically the next day and not play that day. So he searched online for a way to be able to play. He cut off his finger, played his game. However, when he brings the finger in, it is revealed because of the bacteria in the glove, he got an infection. Now he may not have any function in his hand, and he's no longer able to play hockey, so he has lost basically his entire dream, potential scholarship, future, etc., because he couldn't wait a day and hope that scouts would come to a different game in the future. So, or that he could go to a different school, so on and so forth. So, bad decision making there. Then we have Addison's case is a mother who is in the hospital basically on bed rest and is wanting a C-section for the baby now that it's viable due to the bed rest, which does happen in the episode. And then her husband flirts with Addison, gives her attention. However, that attention completely disappears once the baby is there because he is devoted to his child and wife. But then we have the last patient, of course, which is Denny. Izzy and Alex were sleeping together. Alex thought that they were pretty much together again, but Izzy was seeing it as purely physical. Izzy has actual emotional feelings for Denny, therefore she does not think her and Alex are together. And when Alex, behind her back, basically warns Denny off his territory, she then scolds him and basically says, "You have no territory," and kicks him to the curb, and then proceeds to have Scrabble dates with Denny and convince him to get an operation that will end up keeping him in the hospital until he can get a heart. But he does so because she's worried about him and he has feelings for her too. Which then also brings us to Callie and George. Callie is the attending on the fractured finger slash finger being removed, and she basically brings George onto the case as a way to try to flirt with him, and she flirts with him throughout the episode and also warns him, like, "I'm not going to flirt with you forever. I give you my number. I'm giving you all the signals. I'm like outright saying, I want to be with you. You have to basically make your choice. I'm not going to keep asking. There's that. Of course, George is still roommates with Burke and Christina, and he has a very good relationship and routine down with Burke, which of course makes Christina uncomfortable, but she doesn't say anything about it because obviously George is hurting because of Meredith. Meredith and Derek are managing to be friends, and throughout the episode she refuses to tell him the terrible thing that she did, but by the end she does tell him the terrible thing, and he gives her the advice to use the elevator. So she locks George in the elevator with her and basically tells him that she is very, very sorry, that they are friends and real friends, and when he chooses to look back, she'll still be standing there waiting for him to be friends again. And then he walks off without looking back. Derek also has realized from his own patient that, you know, even like before their marriage fell apart and Addison's affair with Mark, he hadn't seen her. He had been absent, he had not noticed her, and he acknowledges that he had some form of culpability in their marriage falling apart. And then, last thing that matters that happened in the episode is Christina, instead of doing surgeries all day, was stuck babysitting Tucker, who Miranda brought to work with her, and at the end of the episode basically tells Miranda that she's not a babysitter, which Miranda accepts. So now that we have been reminded what happened in the episode, we can rank the episode, and as always, it'll be on our two lists, the mostly objective ranking list, followed by the personal ranking list. All right, so we'll start with our mostly objective rank values. I highlighted those I felt applied to this episode. So to start with, we have our single episode supporting character introductions, which are the two non-recurring patients that were memorable to the episode, which was Sylvia Booker, who was the one with the fork in the neck and the aneurysm, and then Heath Mercer was the one who cut off his own finger so he could play a game, which ended up being pointless because now he can't play anymore, so even if he impressed the scouts, doesn't matter. And that brings us to 2 points, as they were each worth 1 point each. Then we have +2 for Callie's continued flirtation with George, and George being semi-receptive. Like, he hasn't said that he wants to be with her, but he does seem to get along, and he does seem to be in awe of the fact that she is flirting with him and wants to be with him. Then we, of course, have Derek acknowledging that he does have some part in the failure of his and Addison's relationship and their marriage breaking apart, which makes her happy and, of course, is a good way to move forward with their relationship. And then lastly, 2 points for the Izzy-Denny relationship, where, like I said, she basically chooses him over Alex, assures him that there's nothing going on between her and Alex, flirts with him, and even has Scrabble dates, and makes emotional pleas with him to get a surgery that he didn't initially want because she wants to keep him alive and spend time with him. And then we have our negative for the episode, which is -2, and that is the supporting relationship regression or breakup, which is that Izzy makes it clear to Alex that she chooses Denny. Once she finds out that he went behind her back and tried to like claim territory with Denny, she basically pages him to an on-call room to yell at him and says like, we aren't together, we aren't anything, and that she basically does choose Denny, so that's -2, which brings this episode to a 6 out of 10. So our mostly objective ranking so far has in first, Make Me Lose Control, Into You Like a Train, Bring the Pain. No, I don't know what I was saying. Begin the Begin is third. Tell Me Sweet Little Lies, Break On Through, as we know it. What have I done to deserve this? Deny, deny, deny. Thanks for the memories. It's the end of the world. Enough is enough. Something to talk about. Let it be. Much too much. Yesterday. 16th is bring the pain. And then this episode comes in 17th. Band-Aid covered the bullet holes. Or Band-Aid covers the bullet hole. Oh my god, I can't read today. Then we have 18. Raindrops keep falling on my head. Owner of a lonely heart. And then Grandma got run over by a reindeer is in 20th. Bringing us to the personal ranking. And to be completely frank, not my favorite episode. So I felt like most of the patients were pretty unmemorable. And while like there was some interesting circumstances like a fork in the neck, it actually turned out to be an aneurysm, which we've seen before on the show isn't really that special. Similarly, we had Callie, who's like a bone doctor, dealing with a fracture, and then all of a sudden it's a cut finger, bacteria, he loses his future. But basically, that was a vessel for Callie to flirt with George. I don't care about George, so I don't care that he's friends with Burke. I don't care that Callie's really flirting with him. I don't even care that he's really mad with Meredith. And I felt like the episode was very George-centric, so I was kind of like, meh. The whole baby saga, I feel like Bailey is a very professional doctor, so I'm not sure why she's bringing her baby to work when she knows like she can't take care of him when he's in surgery. If they don't have a daycare at the hospital, she's a doctor. I'm fairly certain her husband works. I'm sure they can afford a daycare for the baby to go to now that she's back from maternity leave. But it really isn't Christina's job to be taking care of a baby. But obviously, the chief of surgery knows she has a baby. It's obviously not against the rules since she wasn't disciplined or reprimanded for it. So I didn't count it as negative behavior on the mostly objective ranking. But I do think that, she should have made arrangements before returning from maternity leave for her baby so that he isn't, taking interns who need to learn about surgery away from the surgeries they need to learn about. Then, of course, there's the Izzy and Denny situation. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with a doctor and a patient falling in love. I mean, you don't have any control over where and when you meet somebody that's right for you. So the fact that they've developed feelings, to me, nothing wrong with that. However, what I do find a little bit morally questionable, though obviously not illegal, but morally questionable, is the fact that she is still staying on his case when she has feelings for him and is going on these like little dates with him. Like I understand, like if she wants to be in the hospital with him, if she cares about him, but she can do that off duty, and I think she should not be on his case when she is so emotionally invested. This is just my feelings from this episode, but as this is a rewatch with the power of foresight, I double down and say 100% she should not be involved in Denny's case whatsoever because she does now have feelings for the patient and has started somewhat of a relationship, though it has not yet been verbally defined. She did go on a date with him on the last episode, like bring basically like a picnic to his hotel room. This time she's sitting there playing Scrabble with him, blowing off the person that she was sleeping with to spend time with him. She's clearly very emotionally invested. She convinces him to get a surgery that he doesn't initially want, more so for her peace of mind because she doesn't want him to die than really his own feelings, which is something more of like a relationship where you look at both halves to decide on the outcome that's best for you both. So, overall, I didn't really enjoy the episode. Centric to a character I'm not overly fond of. Other dramas, kind of morally questionable. I gave it a 2 out of 10. I wasn't really fond of it. And so, because I gave it a 2 out of 10, that brings the personal ranking list to first. As we know it, it's the end of the world, make me lose control, raindrops keep falling on my head, something to talk about, into you like a train, break on through, deny, 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 let it be, tell me sweet little lies, begin the begin, thanks for the memories, much too much, yesterday, enough is enough, bring the pain. 17th is Grandma got run over by a reindeer. What have I done to deserve this? Owner of a lonely heart. And this one I have now put into last place, 20. Band-Aid covers the bullet hole. And that now brings us to our final segment, which is, of course, our series ranking so far. And on the mostly objective ranking, Season 1 currently has a score of 77.78, and Season 2 has 156 out of 270 so far. And then on the personal side, Season 1 scored 66.67%, and Season 2 so far has a score of 138 out of 270. So with that, we've now rewatched and ranked Grey's Anatomy Season 2, Episode 20, Band-Aid Covers the Bullet Hole. Like and subscribe if you'd like to, and I'll see you in the next episode.